Hey guys, Farmer Jesse here. Today I want to talk about the hows and whys of rotational grazing. So how we do it, why we do it, and how we're going to sort of integrate it into our no-till garden system. So let's do it. All right, so we have a pretty small flock. We have 13 sheep right now, and mostly ewes. We have some wethers, which are the castrated males, and then we have one ram that we're kind of raising up, and then we just had a new little ewe lamb, which is pretty fun. So how it works essentially is that we rotate our sheep along our pasture, throughout our pasture. We have about 6 acres of pasture. So we rotate the sheep through those pastures about every 36 to 48 hours. So every day and a half, sometimes every day, depending on the size of the paddock or the forage that's in it, or just the time of year. So we rotate them almost every day. We move them into new paddocks, which are made of these like little fences you see here. This is just kind of a electrifiable fence that we get from a company called Premier One. And it's a really great company. We electrify them with a portable charger, a little suitcase charger. And how it works is that we habituate the sheep to a call. So you'll hear me say, or just kind of yell at them, and they come to me because they know I'm gonna let them into new forage. So basically what I do is I open up that fence and I let them in, and then after I moved them in, I'll close that back paddock and then take down that fence and move it and set up a new paddock, which is what you can kind of see me doing, zipping all over the pasture. I always set up a new paddock beforehand, because if they ever get out, and they do occasionally get out, they never really go that far, but they do occasionally get out, just from random circumstances. Maybe I forget to turn on the charger, or maybe one of the sheep get locked in the fence and kind of pull it down. Things happen, they will get out inevitably, but when they get out, if I have another paddock set up, I can just call them to me with that call. And they'll come, and then I'll just let them into their new paddock, and it's not a big deal. Generally it doesn't take me very long to get them into a new paddock. And by moving them all the time, we're doing several things. One, we're not leaving them where their parasites are. So in their manure are parasites, and if they're eating the grass right above the manure, they're just re-ingesting those parasites, and that's why a lot of people have to give wormers. We've never given wormers, and we've never had a parasite issue. Because when we move them, we leave their parasites in the back paddock and move them to the next paddock, to a clean one, and then we just keep doing that, and we don't revisit that same paddock for at least 4 weeks. So that gives those parasites time to go through their cycle without getting back into the sheep's rumens. The other thing it does is it sort of allows the grass to regenerate. So we let them kind of trim the top of the grass, maybe a little bit more, and then we move them into the next paddock, and that allows that grass to regenerate, and that gives us a better diversity of grasses. That's the kind of thing where we'll see grasses that a lot of farmers won't see, because if you continually graze sheep on one paddock, or even cattle or anything on one pasture, they're going to chew down all the grasses that need a little bit of time to regenerate. So that's one thing that we really like about rotational grazing, is it allows those grasses, that diversity of grasses, to kind of come back. It does add a little bit more of a daily chore. You know, we do have to move them. It takes me about 30 minutes to move them every day or day and a half. So it's, you know, maybe a few hours a week. But I enjoy doing it. I like being with the sheep. I like what they're doing. They're sequestering carbon by taking that grass, turning it into manure, and the manure is getting eaten by the soil, and the soil is turning that back into grass, and then that's photosynthesizing and adding carbon back into the soil. And I love that. That's something that we're really passionate about. So we chose sheep because they're small, they're affordable, they're really efficient in the pasture. And I really like working with sheep. We've worked with everything: goats, chickens, ducks, cattle, pigs. We've worked with everything, but we really like sheep. They have a good personality. We really like the meat, the lamb, and you know, they're just really easygoing, and I like that they're so easy to habituate to a call. In terms of incorporating them sort of back into our garden system, last year we did graze them through the garden when it was in the dead of winter, when we had our Brussels sprouts and everything were dead, and we let them kind of come in and clean that up, but also the ground was frozen solid, so we wouldn't have to worry about so any sort of compaction, which is our one fear about grazing them kind of through our garden system, because it's in semi-permanent raised beds, so we don't really want anything on those beds. So we did do that a little bit in the middle of the winter last year. We'll probably do that again if it comes down to frozen beds and they need to, and we have an option of letting them in there without them causing any sort of compaction, but giving us that manure, I will definitely do it. I'm happy to do that when it's 0 degrees for a week. Instead of grazing them into our garden, we're actually kind of maybe gonna work towards a sort of a hay system with them, where having them graze half the pasture, mowing the other half for hay immediately following, and then having them graze that other half and then mowing the bottom part for hay. So essentially dividing it in half and have them refertilize what we've just mowed, and then kind of flipping it back and forth and bringing all that back into the garden. So we're making the pastures and the sheep work for the garden instead of just being sort of, you know, growing the pastures, which is great, but we don't need the pastures. We need a little bit of meat. We're not really doing this as a big business. It's more trying to figure out ways to sequester carbon, build soil, and, you know, bring and have healthy meat, but for ourselves and maybe for a few customers, but also figure out a way to get them to contribute to the garden, which is really our enterprise. That is our business. Otherwise, if you like this video, please like this video. You know, make sure to subscribe. Hit that little floating bobble that comes up, you know, with our heads on it. That will get you to the subscription thing, and you can subscribe, and then in so doing, you can follow along when we put up new videos. Other than that, we'll see you guys next week. I love watching these guys.